As the United States and all nations progress technologically, we look at about 100 years ago, near the beginning of the last century, Willis Carrier invented the air conditioner, something a lot less ominous than what we're talking about here. But what that allowed people to do was to migrate into the United States South, a place that really wasn't that livable, that really wasn't that habitable. And one important demographic change that COVID brought is more people are on Zoom now, and more people are able to work remotely than ever before. So certainly that can create changes in migration patterns and so on. Do you have any thoughts with that there? Therefore, do we have somewhat more of a decentralization where living in a United States MSA is less important? How much less important is it?
So many thoughts. Okay. I'd say that there's three big issues going on in real estate right now, writ large. It's kind of layered one step below those major trends. Number one, the baby boomers are retiring. They don't want to live somewhere where they have to shovel snow. Number two, the millennials, the oldest of whom are now entering their 40s, are discovering that you can't raise kids in major urban areas, inner city. It's certainly not in Midtown. And then third, because of COVID, no one wants to have to commute. So what we're seeing is a relocation of a lot of the professional class, especially millennials, especially boomers, away from the dense urban enclaves on the coasts, plus Chicago, and into places in the interior or in the South, the West, or the Southwest. As they're getting away from the cold, they're getting away from high property prices, and they're getting away from metro-centric transport systems. And so if you're in a crescent from roughly Boise and Salt Lake City in the Northwest, down through Phoenix and Texas and all the way up into Hampton Roads, you're kind of in the magic zone for areas that are benefiting from these three interlinking trends. And if you overlay that with some of the broader stuff that's happening internationally, it neatly lines up, just coincidentally, because the Mountain West, the Southwest, and the South are also the areas that are benefiting the most from the Mexico impulse. They're benefiting the most from the deglobalization impulse. They're reindustrializing and moving up and down value-added supply chains most rapidly because they have more green space that can be processed for industrial use. And if you add this in with not just population growth, but affluent population growth, these are the parts of the country that are going to see the most rabid economic growth for at least the next couple of decades, probably more.
There's a lot to unpack there. You mentioned the millennials, younger millennials, and kind of that age cohort between 25 and 34. They're really in what I call prime household formation years, where they do want to get out of the house and not live with their parents. That's such a populous cohort. So some people look at overall American population growth as really not being that high, and the pandemic put that overall population growth rate in check. But we do have this demographic, really rich, a big population of people just looking to begin household formation. I know you probably have more to talk about there, Peter, but we had wanted to talk region by region about the United States and their economic fortunes as it relates to real estate markets and other things. And maybe it's best, Peter, to start perhaps where a lot of things started, where the Mayflower landed in New England. Talk to us just in general about the fortunes of those states, Maine down to Boston and the rest of New England.
I'm not going to say New England is screwed, because there's no part of the United States that is screwed. But if you want to talk about a part of the country that faces challenges moving forward, demographically speaking, it is already the most aged population we have. It is the most rapidly aging portion. And until roughly the year 2000, it was also the part of the country that could rely on a lot of mid and low and high skilled labor from the old world to the new. New York City, Boston, DC, these were the gateway communities for European migrants. Well, back in 2000, that more or less stopped. And so they're still getting in migration, but it's been a long time since New York was the most internationalized city in the country. San Francisco is more internationalized, Los Angeles is, and Houston has the number one spot. New York doesn't think of it that way, but that's how it's been for some time. And so you've got a population that is honestly teetering on the edge of a major mass retirement, because you've got the greatest concentration of boomers in the country in the Northeast, and on average, the boomers will be retired next year. Now, they are not prepared for what this is going to do to their tax system, to their healthcare system, to their infrastructure. Because if you take people who are 63, they're at the height of their earning potential. They're at the height of their tax paying potential. But if you fast forward to 66, they're now no longer tax providers, they're tax takers. And that is going to hit the Northeast writ large like a freight train. And it's not like boomers might go back. You never get younger, you only get older. And because there isn't a replacement generation coming up from below, and because the millennials who moved to the Northeast to have that urban experience are now moving out, you're seeing a serious hollowing out. And in that environment of insufficient infrastructure and ever tighter labor markets, you're never going to see a manufacturing renaissance in this area. Now, that doesn't mean this area is doomed. It's very high value. This is where MIT is and Harvard. These are places that are hugely value added and have associated industries with them. Biomedical, design, this is real stuff.
A lot of big brands.
Yes, but they're not going to benefit from the secular trends that are going to benefit most of the rest of the country. Doesn't make it a disaster zone, but it means it's not a growth story.